Well, good morning and welcome everyone. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and this is Elevenses, my twice weekly webcast. And today we are live from the Isle of Wight, which was, until about 30 minutes ago, the beautifully sunny Isle of Wight. But a band of clouds has just rolled over, and we're forecast thunderstorms for the afternoon. But it's still swelteringly hot for the time of year. Anyway, aside from the local weather forecast, what have I got for you in today's show? Well, 500,000 riders, 500,000 drivers are waiting for car tests, presumably some motorcyclists in amongst that lot as well. Lane splitting by motorcyclists has been banned in Texas. Meanwhile, police in Lahore have issued, wait for it, over 1 million fines to helmetless riders in 3 months. We'll have a look at why that is. What do you think you can manage to ride in India on an electric motorcycle? Well, a rider on the Ultraviolette electric bike has managed 6,700 kilometres. And we'll have a quick look at a new lightweight workshop fire extinguisher and why I think they might be a good idea if you've got a garage with bikes in it. We'll have a quick look at a trio of new bikes from BMW, and we'll also find out a little bit more about the newly released Aprilia RS 457, which has been teased for a while, but it finally was unveiled in full. And then we'll finish up with today's in-depth item, which is looking at road safety campaigns and asking whether they actually do the trick. So that's it for what's on today. So settle yourselves down for the next 30 minutes or so while I run through that list of news and views. Now, the first thing I just want to talk about there is the news stories. Let's come on with my news banner. There it is. Let's get it the right size. The Observer. They've done an investigation and they say that the system for allocating driving tests here in the UK is in disarray, to quote them. Now, the official figures reveal that around 1.7 million driving tests are carried out each year in Great Britain, so not including Northern Ireland. The number of drivers currently waiting for practical tests hit more than 500,000 in August, so something right around about a third of those tests are people waiting for them, so the implication is at least a 4-month wait for that. Now, in January 2020, before COVID, the waiting number was around 147,000, so you can see that the queue has gone up more than 3 times. So as a result, unofficial driving test brokers are cashing in, and what they're doing is they're using bots which book the available slots as soon as the DVSA release them on their website. So they then, having booked up all the slots that are available, they're then in a position where they can resell them. And learners have been forced to pay as much as £400 apparently to secure a test slot in the town that they want. So the problem is exacerbated because other learners are also booking random tests, so not the tests that they want in the place that they want them, but they are booking these tests when they become released on the official website, which is said to be 6 AM on a Monday morning. And then what they do is they swap them on the official DVSA website, which apparently allows you to do that, didn't know that, or on social media. And you can also get apps which can be purchased on things like the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, and you can then trawl the government website for cancellations, and those apps are between £10 and £20, so that's another way of making a profit out of the learners waiting lists. Alternatively, of course, you book a test at an inconvenient time in an inconvenient test centre, and some people are said to be travelling hundreds of miles to find a less busy test centre where they can take their test. So driving instructors, not surprisingly, are calling for a ban on what they call excessive profits from the reselling of tests. Frankly, I think there should be a ban on reselling these tests, full stop. Cancel it by all means. Allow people who have booked a test which they then can't make to hand it back, and then pass it out to other people who are still looking for a test at short notice. I'm sure they would fill most of those. So why is this backlog, why has it grown by more than 3 times? Well, the DVSA claim it's an increase in demand, which frankly seems very unlikely to me, unless what they are saying is an increasing demand compared with, of course, the year when we had COVID, when driving tests were banned for a very long time. So if you count the number of tests that took place in 2020, there wouldn't have been nearly as many as there would have been in 2019, for example, or last year or this year. So it seems unlikely that there's actually a sudden surge in demand. My guess is that it's still the unresolved backlog following COVID, which means that there are people who stopped taking driving lessons perhaps during the pandemic and have maybe restarted, and now they want a test. So that is likely to be a factor, as is a shortage of examiners. They've been trying to employ more examiners, but I don't know how much success they've had. And of course there's also been strike action, which has no doubt had an impact on the waiting list. So anything else they could do? Well, one action that would have an immediate impact would be to ensure that the learners who do take their tests have a better than evens chance of actually passing first time, because more than half of all learner car drivers fail their first test. So in other words, they're put in when it's hit and miss whether they'll pass. If they took a few more lessons, admittedly that would cost them more money, but compared with paying £400 for a test, maybe that would be the better investment and get the pass rate up. Pass rates for motorcyclists are much higher than for cars, incidentally. Loveday Ryder, DVSA's chief executive, said, "We are taking all the measures we can to reduce driving test waiting times, including recruiting almost 500 examiners." Well, I think they've been doing that for over a year now, so I suspect that's not a new measure. DVSA is committed to tackling the reselling of tests at profit, and we have zero tolerance of those who exploit learners. We've changed the rules to help prevent anyone from selling tests at profit, deploying new bot protection to stop automated systems from buying up tests unfairly, and we will remove the accounts of those who break the rules. And the DVSA said that in the last 6 months they've issued 141 warnings, made 113 suspensions and closed 194 businesses for misuse of its business service. Well, if you think about those numbers, the implication is that people who get banned probably just start a new login. Anyway, DVSA say that the number of learner drivers waiting to take the test has increased because they've extended their test booking window to 24 weeks and created additional tests, which frankly sounds a bit bonkers to me. It sounds like a bit of an excuse, fiddling the numbers. Anyway, right. Across the big pond, a number of US states, you probably know if you've been following the show, have officially sanctioned the practice of lane splitting and filtering, but the state of Texas has just gone the other way and they've banned both activities. An amendment to the state transportation code that went into effect on September the 1st this year, 2023, says that both lane splitting and filtering are now explicitly made illegal for motorcycles within the state of Texas. So the state legislation, it contains 2 sections discussing what motorcyclists may and may not do legally in the state, and they say, quote, that motorcycle operators have the right to use a full lane, and the amendment states that the motor vehicle may not be driven in a manner that deprives a motorcycle of the full use of a lane. So in other words, car driver can't squeeze a motorcyclist out by using the gap that the motorcycle's in as a gap between cars. But the section also states that riders may operate a motorcycle 2 abreast in a lane with another motorcycle. So you can still ride in pairs. But there are three things you can't do. You can't operate more than 2 motorcycles abreast in a single lane. And I have seen riding groups riding 3 abreast in wide lanes. And the law also spells out that you may not operate the motorcycle between lanes of traffic moving in the same direction, or pass the motor vehicle while in the same lane as the vehicle being passed. So basically That's filtering and lane splitting ruled out in Texas. Now, I rather suspect that Texas riders will be contacting their elected representatives to give them the benefit of their own views on this particular issue fairly soon. Right, got a comment there. Let's have a look, see who that is. That's Aaron saying good morning. Hello, Aaron. Nice to see you. Thank you for looking in. Right, so don't forget, if you've got comments, anything you want to say on these shows, do drop me a line. I'm always happy to respond. If I can possibly do so, I will respond during the show. If I can't, I will get back to you after the show. So comments, questions, let me know. I've certainly got an item later on which I suspect some people will be wanting to comment on. Right, okay, so half a world away from Texas and quite a long way away from the UK too. I suspect other legislators will be hearing the views of local motorcyclists. Now, according to data obtained by a local newspaper, the city traffic police in Lahore have been issuing challenges, what they call traffic fines there locally. They've issued them to no less than, wait for this, 1,125,000 motorcycle riders, and that is in the last 3 months, and they have been issued for riders not wearing a helmet. 500,000 have been issued in the last month alone. So what the heck is all this about then? Well, it seems that these penalties have been imposed following the Punjab government's decision to enforce the requirement for motorcyclists that to follow safety regulations by properly wearing helmets. So, in other words, it looks like this piece of legislation was on the statute books. It simply hadn't been followed up by the police very often. So, fines have been issued to riders who simply don't have a helmet, riders who have a helmet but prefer to keep it on the tank, or balance it on the hang it from the handlebars, or in fact just dangle the strap from an arm. And they've also been fining riders who are underage. So as well as the fines, more than 83,000 motorcycles have actually been confiscated, and the registrations of more than 250,000 other motorcycles have been cancelled. So it's a pretty drastic impact on a lot of people. Now, why? Well, 14,000 accidents have occurred this year apparently so far, out of which more than 600 have involved severe head injuries, and that is down to the absence of protective headgear. Now, one rider was quoted by the newspaper, because predictably there's been a lot of fuss about this. One rider was quoted as saying that a good quality helmet costs as much as 5,000 rupees, that's roughly £50. He continued, how can we afford the extra expenditure on safety gear when even fuel has become unimaginably expensive? Whilst admitting that he'd actually received 2 fines which have cost him 2,000 rupees each. So it's basically that's almost as much as the helmet he's saying he can't afford. Now, there is an answer to this, and this is to extend the FIA, that's the federation which looks after the interests of racing cars, their Safe and Affordable Helmet program, which they originally announced back in 2021. Now, this aims to create lightweight but effective helmets that are designed specifically to be worn in hot countries where more conventional helmets are often seen as too hot to wear. And these are manufactured at a budget price of $10 wholesale. Now, the original scheme was targeted at Mexico. I did cover this a couple of years ago, 2021, when it was first announced. I've got a bit more information on the latest state of play on this project. There are now a couple of helmets available with the ECE 2205 certification, which is still valid until next year apparently. And I'll take a look at those in a future show and show you just how basic a legal helmet can actually be. Now, the Indian motorcycle electric manufacturer Ultraviolette, they're a relatively new player on the electric motorcycle scene, but the brand's F77 electric bike has already made it into the record book. So there's a picture of the one of these F77s. A sort of stylish, slightly slab-sided looking machine, but quite a neat looking bike. And it's said that one of the company's first customers, though I rather suspect this was a PR stunt, frankly, beginning to end, Bala Manikardan, he's just covered 6,727 kilometres in 22 days on his Ultraviolette F77, so the bike that you can see there in the picture, the same model. Now, the journey began in Chennai. He visited 14 states before ending his journey in Bengaluru, and that's a daily average of 300 kilometres, and that is an Asian and Indian record. So he had to contend with what they described as uneven roads, I can imagine, but also temperatures that reportedly varied from minus 15 degrees Celsius, that's 5 degrees Fahrenheit for those who think that way, to a sweltering 45 degrees Celsius, which is 113 Fahrenheit, which is even hotter than it's been in England just recently. Now, for your information, the bike has 3 power modes, the wonderfully named Glide, Combat and Ballistic. And it said he made use mostly of the middle combat mode. Now, the machine has a mid-mounted electric motor. It's got a top speed of 152 kph, and according to the company, it provides a real-world range of 307 kilometres on a single charge, which just happens to be his daily average, of course. And the bike also comes with an 8-year guarantee. Now, I rather suspect that some Harley owners might be hoping for an 8-year guarantee as well, because it turns out that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the NHTSA, have advised the owners that the US motorcycle manufacturer is recalling over 65,000 Softails, and this is one of the Softail variants in the picture there, and it's due to a faulty rear shock absorber fastener. So what's the problem? Well, apparently, according to the recall, it is prone to breakage. It could damage the rear tyre, and that could lead to reduced tyre pressure, so presumably it could actually cause a complete puncture. Now, it says that the fastener could fracture, and then the shock absorber adjuster itself contacts the rear tyre. So symptoms to watch out for. According to the recall notice, operator or passenger may detect a noise from under the seat. In addition, a loose rear shock absorber adjuster may be noted if the seat is removed. Also, if the shock absorber is making contact with the rear tyre, difficulty manoeuvring the motorcycle may be experienced, and in addition, non-typical wear may be noted on the tyre. Well, if something is dangling on the tyre, and then I would expect all of those. So, how many claims have been made? Well, 33 claims have been made on warranty because of this defective adjuster, and the recall affects 2018 to 2023 Softails produced between June 28, 2017 and August the 7th, 2023, when hopefully they fixed it with a new part. So, okay, a couple of years ago, funnily enough, talking on the one of my regular bike forums, somebody had reported that they had had a small fire in their garage. I can't remember quite what had happened, but they had been able to put the fire out, and no lasting damage was done. But what surprised me was actually the number of people who responded with a sort of Me Too story. Now, I've never actually managed to have a fire in my own garage, but I did manage to set fire to some ignition sealer once when the bike was outdoors. I made the mistake of actually spraying it at a tracking plug lead with the engine running, and predictably the spark that I was trying to suppress actually ignited the sealant, and it was a fairly spectacular flare-up, but of course as soon as I dropped the can, the spray stopped, so the flames went out. But I did happen to notice that RS Workshop equipment have something called the Fire Safety Stick, which, if I can get the picture up on screen, I will show you a picture of. Here it is, coming up any moment now. There we go. That's what the item is. Now, it's said that basically the idea is that you keep this thing where you might need to fight a fire quickly. So basically you need it where the fire might start. So the pluses for this safety, this fire safety stick, is that it's said to cause no messy residue. But I do kind of discount the advertising blurb that claims that the technology operates at the molecular level and was created for the space program. Now, the idea that you can block material from burning by removing oxygen, then the fire goes out, that's centuries old. So basically, the difference that I can see is that it's not a pressurized container. So it must have chemicals inside which react and produce an inert gas. Anyway, it's said to work on all major fire classes, which are solid materials, flammable liquids and gases, electrical fires, and kitchen fires. And they also claim that you get a much longer discharge time than for a conventional compact extinguisher, and you get a 50-second or 100-second shot discharge depending on which one you buy. And they also say that it's a lot lighter than conventional extinguishers. But the one other plus point for it seems to be that once you set it off, basically it will carry on discharging if you simply plonk it down. So for instance, if you did have a sort of fire start in the garage, you just aim the thing in the general direction of the fire base of flames, is the usual recommendation, and then just evacuate the garage and close the door behind you, and then hopefully when you get back in, the fire is out. You won't have to call the fire service. So no maintenance, no servicing required, 15-year shelf life, which is pretty decent, and the price doesn't seem too bad either for something which could give you quite a lot of peace of mind in your garage with your expensive motorcycle. They start from £62, roughly speaking, from RS Workshop Equipment. So, okay, that's the fire, the safety stick, which seems like a pretty good investment for me. Maybe you could get somebody to purchase you one of those for a Christmas present. What about that for an idea? Right, okay, so on some new bikes news. What have we got for you today? Well, the first thing to say is that BMW, they have updated their mid-sized adventure bike range. So here they are. You're looking at the F90 GS, the F90 GS Adventure, and the F800 GS. And they're all said to offer a purer and more fun ride thanks to their uprated off-road, touring and adventure capabilities. You kind of wonder, isn't it, where's the end of the improvement to fun and capability? Anyway, how do the bikes achieve this? Well, the first thing they get is they get a 52cc capacity boost. It goes up from 853 to 895. So that means each model gets an extra 10 horsepower. So the F800 GS, for example, goes up now to 87 horsepower, 64 kilowatts. That's said to be their entry-level machine, although quite how 87 horsepower can be classed as an entry-level bike, I'm really not very sure. But I guess what they're actually meaning is that you can legally restrict that to an A2 license. The F900 GS and the Adventure, they get a boost to 77 kilowatts, 105 horsepower, and that will put them over that legal limit for restricting down to the A2 license, 47 horsepower. The GS Adventure is said to be more capable of extended adventure trips and long demanding tours than it was before. Torque curve on both the 900s is also said to have been improved for greater pulling power and faster acceleration, but as I said before, you can always drop the gearing a bit. That usually does the trick too, at the expense of a bit of top speed that you'll probably never get anywhere near. The bikes do get a new transmission though. Now all three of these machines, the twin cylinder engine is integrated into the sheet steel frame, which is interesting, and it acts as a stress member, so no fancy alloy frames here then. But there has been some attention to losing some mass from all three machines. The 900 GS gets a lightweight 14.5 litre plastic fuel tank, which is claimed to save 4.5 kilograms over a steel tank, and I have to say that's a really hard to swallow claim. That would £9, £10, that's a pretty heavy amount of weight to lose from a petrol tank. So I very much suspect that's not entirely correct. I'd be amazed if it was. The redesigned tail, that's supposed to lose another 2.4 kilograms, and the Akrapovic rear silencer sheds another 1.7. So presumably that's a road legal silencer out of the factory anyway. So what else did BMW do with these bikes? Well, one of the things that all of these bikes seem to be doing is treading the path of electronic upgrades. The GS models in the F series, they already offer rain and road as standard riding modes, as well as dynamic traction control, cornering optimized ABS, and dynamic brake lighting. That's the feature that makes the brake light come on when the rider rolls off the throttle. But you can pay extra if you want to. You can get pro driving modes, which are said to exploit the dynamic qualities of the new bikes by opening up additional driving modes, driving mode pre-selection, and engine drag torque control, as well as that dynamic brake control. Presumably it allows you to tweak it. Other things that the bikes come with: bigger screens, revised riding triangles, and so on. There's actually far too much to list, so what I recommend that you do is head over to the BMW website and tell them, that'll tell you what you want to know. But one thing was missing from BMW's rather self-congratulatory press release, and that was the price, which I have not seen yet. Okay, now another motorcycle I did mention in a very recent show was the Aprilia. We were calling it an RS440, but it turns out it's the 457, the RS457, and it is the new A2 compliance bike, and it was in fact revealed at the Misano GP round, and it looks like it's bang on the 47 horsepower A2 license limit, and frankly that should help with any reliability fears there. 100 horsepower RS660 hasn't been exactly fault free. Now, as predicted, it's a water-cooled parallel twin, gets traction control, 3 ride modes, the usual array of TFT screen, LED lights, but does get backlit switches as well. It's housed all in an aluminium alloy frame, and although it is a sporty looking bike, the riding triangle is said to be fairly relaxed. Now, it does cut some corners with a single disc up front. You get ABS, of course, and you only get basic preload adjustable suspension. Now, interestingly, the bike actually gets an underslung 2-in-1 exhaust, which presumably is one of the things that helps keep the weight down to 175 kilos fueled up. Now, it looks like the bike will be built in India. I meant to put the picture up. Where's the picture gone? Here it is. Let's have a look at that. Beautiful atmospheric shots at the circuit there. Looks like the machine will be built in India. Hopefully be priced accordingly. Similar bikes, well, you've got the £6,099 Ninja 400 at one end, Honda's CBR 500R, which is around £500 more expensive at 6599. So what are we saying about these bikes? Well, Piaget's CEO, Piaget of course owned Aprilia, Kaylee Colaninno, he said, quote, "In recent years the Aprilia brand has seen an intense burst of renewal, also supported by continued progress in the racing world. We're now ready to take another step towards the future with an astonishing bike developed entirely in Noailles, capable of stimulating and thrilling young people and opening up huge potential in new markets near and far. It's a step closer to the globalization of a brand that has always had the perfect combination of technology, fun, and looking to the future in its DNA." So some big claims there. Now, to be honest, Aprilia's re-entering the lightweight stakes like this makes Ducati's decision not to have an affordable entry-level machine even more explicable. Go and look at what Ducati actually offer you. You know, the days when they had the Monster 600, 620 as a basic bike, which got people onto the path of going up through the Ducati range, is long gone. Now, Aprilia say that the RS457 produces the best power to weight ratio in its class, and I have to say, with those specs, I can't help but fondly remember my old GS500E, one of the early ones that was, before the noise regs stuck a bung up the exhaust and the carburetors were fiddled about with to reduce emissions. Now, that bike put out a claimed 54 horsepower and it weighed just 182 kilograms wet. And with some attention to the suspension, it was an absolute hoot to ride on twisty roads. So I suspect a lot of people would have a lot of fun on a bike with what a lot of people say is a limited power output. But you know, when you've got very little weight to throw around, it can really make for a very, very good fun bike on twisty road. Just like my 1990 GS 550. So plus ça change, as they say. Right, okay, and finally over to my in-depth feature to round off the show. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, anything you want to say, do drop me a line. So today's question is, what's needed for a good safety campaign? And the sort of thing that has got me thinking about this is, over the summer I've been running a long series of posts all about how a safety campaign, I think, completely missed the target. They didn't really target the roads that they were looking to target. It's got me thinking in wider terms about these. So safety campaigns really have been running since the 1950s. And they've spread across the world. Have a look at this poster here. This is the sort of thing that many of the countries around the world put out, and this one is from South Australia. Now, here in the UK, our fatality rates and injury numbers generally have been steadily falling since the sort of 1950s. Through the 80s and then down into the 2010s, although they do appear to have plateaued over the last decade or so. But one problem that seems to escape attention from virtually everybody is, why is it that if we are getting safer on the bikes, why are we having the same crashes that our great grandparents did 70 years ago? What actually makes for a good road safety campaign? Now, there used to be a summary on the Global Road Safety Partnership website, which is grsproadsafety.org, but that particular page appears to have disappeared for now. And it defined three types of campaign. The first thing is that a campaign can do is raise awareness of an issue or to inform. So, for example, if there are new road laws that you need to know about, that's how you can do it. The second purpose of a road safety campaign, it could be to change attitudes. So it could be, for example, to improve public acceptance of road safety measures. So, for example, if you have a signs warning you that you are now entering a brand new 20-mile-per-hour zone, you could follow that up with a campaign which tells you what the benefits of a 20-mile-per-hour zone actually are. And then you can have campaigns which aim to change behaviour, usually as part of a package of measures, which would include, in the case of 20 limit, you might have speed cameras monitoring people's behaviour within that zone, or you could engineer the zone. That's why speed humps, for example, go in. But you really need to kind of do all three to get the full benefit. If you just do one on its own, it really doesn't seem to be particularly effective. And they make the point that road safety campaigns compared with commercial marketing campaigns to make you switch from your favourite brand of coffee to another one, or to stop eating chocolate and move to something healthy. Whilst they are often attempting to change behaviour by using a different product or switching brands, they're not often asking you to do something which we see as inconvenient, and that of course is the problem with moving from a 30 to a 20. We see it as driving more slowly as being inconvenient. So the website said that they road safety messages have to apply social marketing principles, because we have to identify what people actually want, and then you can try to look for linkages to safety. And then if you can do that, then it's possible to encourage a personal commitment to safety, because, to quote, otherwise individuals may see little or no relevance to themselves in adopting a change to behaviour, and their direct personal experience may run counter to the evidence being presented. Now, hang on to that one for a moment, because I'm going to come back to that. And the website continues, for example, a driver who has regularly exceeded the speed limit and has yet to be involved in a crash does not readily accept that the statistical evidence linking speed and risk applies to him or her. Now, I'll go a bit further than that. I'd say that there's also a counterintuitive effect that the driver or rider who sticks closely to the speed limit probably also means that they have a lower risk of crashing. So I'm struggling personally with that argument. So moving on anyway, how do we change attitudes? And this is where GPRS say that in countries where hard-hitting images are socially acceptable, a successful campaign will have the following features: hard-hitting publicity based on emotional and physical consequences of being penalised for breaking the law or being injured in a crash. So just go and have a look at that picture again for a moment and tell me what you think that's suggesting. You can stress enforcement activities. You can take an advertising approach which is realistic, non-judgmental, convincing but not apologetic, contains as much emotion as possible. So tell me, in that context, how realistic is the photo? Is it non-judgmental? Is it convincing? Does it contain emotion? I think it does on the last count. The trouble is, does any of it work? Now, one paper written by researchers at Australia's Monash University, and they are a country where there are some pretty graphic safety videos. We'll have a look at So they concluded that road safety is particularly renowned for its use of physical threats, in which drivers and passengers are often shown to be injured or killed as a result of unsafe or illegal behaviour. Typically, these advertisements, in a graphically explicit manner, portray the crash scene and victims. There has been mixed evidence regarding the evidence for these fear-arousing appeals. So there we go, mixed evidence. So maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But we do know that the type of motorcycle crashes really haven't altered in the last 70 years in the UK, and I very much doubt that anything different happens down under these days either. So I'd like you to just take a quick watch of a video. I'll give you the link. I didn't want to embed it in the show, but I'll give you the link which you can follow easily enough. Here it is. And I'll just ask you a simple question. Watch that video and then answer this. Do you think that that video makes you think maybe I should change the way I ride, or does it make you think I don't ride that like that, so it doesn't apply to me? So which of those two best describes your response? Now, given where you're reading this or watching this on the Survival Skills webcast, I'll take a punt that your response is most likely the second opinion. I've just disqualified this as a scientific study, of course, by prompting you to give the answer that I want you to give. But to be honest, let me know in the comments after the show whether you think that that particular video would have any impact on changing your way of riding. I'd love to know where you might stand on that. And if you want the reference for the paper that I talked about from Monash University, here it is coming up now. So you can go and have a look at that if you want to too. Right, okay, so that is pretty much it for today, but just before we round off, I'd just like to say thank you to my Ko-fi supporters. I forgot to put the banner up to say who they are, but I can recount them for you. Sandy, Nick, Howard, Kelvin and Anonymous. So Sandy, Nick, Howard, Kelvin and Anonymous, thank you very much indeed again for your support. If you're not a supporter, why not pop over to my Ko-fi page and take a look at what's over there. I think it's probably the biggest resource of better biking information for riders anywhere on the web. There's everything from free articles to downloadable copies of some of my paperbacks. Don't forget there are regular subscriber specials too. So if you drop me a coffee over there, you get all that, and you get your name in lights too. Now, a couple of final things at the end of the show. Dates for the diary: the Staffordshire County Showground plays host to what is said to be the UK's biggest and best classic bike show. That's in just over a month, October 14th, 15th. Over the weekend, let's hope the weather holds out. October can be very nice. And then look out for a new film. It's called The Bike Riders. It's based on a 1968 photo book which documented the very real lives of the Chicago Outlaws Motorcycle Club. It follows basically a fictional biker gang that grows to criminal prominence. And amongst the cast is one Jodie Comer, who you probably recall from Killing Eve. And last of all, just want to leave you with a little bit of fun today. This Red Bull video is worth watching. I'll just put the link up to that too. Here it goes. Have a watch of that. They line up a KTM MotoGP bike, a World Rally Championship car, a World Rallycross car, and a 2012 F1 car, which is the fastest down a drag strip. And the result might surprise you. I was fully expecting the Rallycross car to zip off the line into the distance, because they tend to be low geared for very, very fast acceleration, and then I was expecting the F1 car to hurtle away into the distance. So if that's not a surprise, wait till they add the full electric Ford van into the mix. Where would you guess that would finish? So go and watch that video. Tell me what you think. I'll be interested in your comments on today's show. So that's it for today's show. As I say, we've still got a couple of days of the hot weather to come, but we are having a bit of a thundery breakdown today. So if you are heading out, do take a look at the weather radar. There are some hefty storms likely to develop later. As I said, it's just raining fairly gently here in the Isle of Wight at the moment. So that's it for today. Thanks for looking in. I'm Kevin Williams. This has been Elevenses. Enjoy your day if you're out on the bike, and make sure that you stay shiny side up.